How you doing, folks? Welcome back to the channel. So do you remember, or what was it, like a year ago, maybe a bit less, it seemed like everyone was talking about, is 8 gigabytes of VRAM enough in a GPU in 2023/2024? So I figured we would revisit that today. Now we're, a good part of the way through 2024 and we've got some new games to test out. So what I've done, I've removed my 4080 Super from my gaming rig, which consists of, besides the 4080 Super, a 5800X3D, and we've got 32 gigabytes of DDR4, 3600 CL16 memory, and we're actually running a new 4 terabyte Western Digital SN850X SSD. I ran out of space and had to upgrade. So we're taking out the 4080 Super, we're putting in my old 3070, which of course is an 8 gigabyte VRAM graphics card, and we're going to see how it holds up at 1440p. We're not going to try 4K because it's not a 4K card. I figure if it works well at 1440p, it's obviously going to work well at 1080p as well. So we're going to try out some games, various presets, and kind of see where we need to be in 2024 to get the a good playable experience. Will we need to drop some settings? I don't know, but let's find out. So we're going to jump into Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, and we're going to start with some just standard multiplayer. Then we're going to move into Warzone, and we're going to see kind of where we need to be to keep within that 8 gigabyte VRAM buffer and see how things go. All right, first things first, we are going to start things off on the Extreme preset. I've turned off any sort of upscaling, so there's no DLSS at play here, and you can see it's got a VRAM scale target of 80%. That is to say the game can take 80% of the available VRAM, leaving a nice little amount for everything else. And you can see we've got a graph here on the right-hand side where, this is our target here, but then this is actually what we're going to use on the Extreme preset. So possibly the Extreme isn't going to be, well, definitely the Extreme isn't going to be the way to go, I would say, but we're going to do it anyway to start out with and just kind of see what kind of FPS numbers we get, and we'll pay particular attention to the 1% and 0.1% lows, because even though we might get a nice average, you might actually start to see the weaknesses appear in the 1%, 0.1% lows. So we're going to dive into a multiplayer match and see what's what. Okay, we are here in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, just the standard multiplayer. We're just in a deathmatch here, which... Oh, God, I still got it. Too easy. Too easy. So, we're on a 3070, 8 gigabyte of VRAM. I'm not expecting crazy high FPS numbers. You can see the GPU is currently being maxed out. What I'm wanting to pay particular attention to... Oh, come on, peek. Peek. No, I ran out of ammo. What I'm going to pay particular attention to is the 1% lows and the 0.1% lows, because I think that's going to be where the story is told. Averages are going to tell us one thing, but I don't think they're going to tell the whole story. They rarely do. God, I'm such a COD god. Hi. Sorry about that. Right. Oh, mate. I hate Call of Duty sometimes, but honestly, sometimes it's just really good fun to play. 0.1% lows, currently at 60, I deserve that, 56 FPS, and you can see our VRAM usage is at 7.3 gig. Oh, I thought I was going to get that then. So we are very, very close to the limit here of what the card is capable of. And again, you're going to kind of expect to see when problems start arising, when you use up all your VRAM, that's going to end up showing in the 1% lows, most likely the 0.1% lows. That's going to be where the damage is really shown. But so far, the 0.1% lows aren't bad. I mean, they're not the highest we've seen, but 60 FPS, I mean, that's kind of like, that's a good day on a console. Alright, so that last match ended. We've been chucked into another match, and I've changed the preset now from the Extreme to the Ultra preset. And if we quickly look, I'll just very quickly show you before the match starts. Go into the Ultra preset from Extreme. Our estimated RAM usage has dropped by a ton. So actually being on Extreme does make a big difference in that regard. So we'll see if that makes a difference to what actually happens. Obviously, we're on a different map. There's not a lot I can do about that. It just changes you around match by match, which is a little bit annoying for benchmarking, but you can see we're now under 7 gig of VRAM. Damn it. Which I think kind of goes to show that the Extreme preset was a little bit on the tough side for the 3070, being on the Ultra preset that we're on now. Seems like a bit more of a sensible place to be if you want to get a more stable experience. That being said, it is Call of Duty after all, and the 1% lows are a bit on the low side. So to that end, I'm going to quickly hide behind here and put us into the balanced preset and see if that improves things for us. So ultra, let's go to balanced, apply, reset the averages. And we'll run around for a bit and wait for those averages to recover. Again, look at that VRAM usage, just going from ultra down to balanced. We're now down to 4 and a bit. 4.8 gigs of VRAM used, comfortably within our 8 GB limit. So any shortcomings we see here, we simply can't blame on VRAM at all. I mean, the 0.1% lows aren't doing great, down at 20 FPS. 1% lows are okay, over 100 FPS. So we can't really grumble at that, I don't think. For multiplayer, Call of Duty, I would say an 8 gig card is absolutely fine. In 2024, for 1440p and obviously therefore 1080p, if you decide you want to crank the settings, obviously you're welcome to. You might pay the price in the 1% lows, 0.1% lows, but even at balance we're paying the price on the 0.1% lows anyway, so it's like, it is Call of Duty after all. It can be a little bit choppy sometimes. Let's try Warzone, because Warzone, as we know, can be a different animal altogether. Okay, so we're queuing up for Warzone, and what I thought we'd do, given that we ended our multiplayer testing on the balanced preset, I figured we'd jump into Warzone on that preset, so you can see it's there selected. We don't have any DLSS or upscaling on. Our VRAM scale target is still 80%, so the game's going to aim to use only 80% of what's available to it. And we will go from there, and we'll sort of crank it up, go from balanced, we'll then go to ultra, we'll then go to extreme, and we'll kind of see what becomes of the situation, see how far we can push it really, before things start to get a bit ugly. But like I say, Warzone's a very different thing to multiplayer. There's a lot going on. It puts a lot more stress on your CPU, certainly, because obviously there's a load of players. It's a big map. So we'll see if that translates to any difference on the GPU front of things. And I'll see you on the ground in Urzikstan. All right, folks, we're here into Warzone, and already you can see the memory limit going from a 4 point something in multiplayer is now up to 7.3 in Warzone. So a very, very different experience. Let's jump into the city, because that is going to be a pretty hard-hitting area of the game. You see we're going up to 7.5 there just a moment ago on the VRAM usage. So I think VRAM usage, even at balanced, might be something that we feel in Warzone as opposed to multiplayer. So it's interesting to test the two, because I think sometimes they get conflated, whereas actually multiplayer is a very different thing to deal with than Warzone. Can I get up on this roof? Is anyone up there? Let's go down to this roof. My aim is just to run around and try not to get shot so we can continue with this benchmark run for as long as possible, because there's nothing more annoying in Call of Duty. 1% lows down in the 40s, which again isn't the greatest. Alright, let's just do a bit of running around here. It doesn't feel the greatest. I mean, regardless of what the numbers are saying, I think it's important to kind of relay to you how it feels, because how it feels is often different to how it looks and how the numbers, what they say it is. Let's get some loot. Yeah, this doesn't feel great. And we're at balanced. Doesn't feel great. Just feels a little bit on the choppy side. The averages are looking okay though at 120. But those 0.1% lows aren't a lot different than the actual 1% lows, which I think is why it's not feeling great at all. And this is at balanced. Yeah. So now we're kind of... Oh, no. Oh, hell yeah. I didn't expect to win that. Yes. Now this immediately feels better, just as I'm moving my mouse around, and that's because of the 1% lows. And 0.1% lows. 0.1% lows are now above 60, which again, that's a good day on a console. So to have that as your lows... Oh, there's people around. I'm going to get shot in a minute, which is just as well, because I think we're almost done here. So on low, we're not doing bad. I think probably if you're going to play this game on an 8GB card, specifically a 3070, you're going to want to maybe look at some optimization guides. There are a ton out there, kind of, you know, levers that you can pull to get visuals that are better than low, but kind of get near to the performance of low. Because it's actually, while visually it might not be the snazziest, I feel like I'm walking into a death trap here. This does actually feel alright. Like, the feel of the game, despite losing that gunfight, the feel of the game is pretty good. Can't argue with it at all. So, if you want to stick to the presets on an 8GB 3070, I think it has to be low. Either that, or you go down the optimization route and try and make things look good where you can, because there are settings that you can improve the look of the game without actually hurting your performance as much. So I think it's probably... Hopefully we've got an AFK. Yes, we do. Yeah, I think your options on a 3070 at least. I can't speak for other 8GB cards, but it certainly seemed like getting beneath that VRAM usage, getting that down. Because look, the GPU's still at 98, 99%, so the GPU core itself is working as hard as it can, but the RAM's got a bit of room to breathe, and as a result, it just feels so much better. So much better. You kind of get that high refresh rate feeling that you get. You know the feeling. Like when you... If you've never experienced a high refresh rate monitor, if say you've been on a 60Hz one forever, and then you get yourself a 144Hz monitor, you turn it on and you're like, oh, that feels so nice. That's the feeling I'm getting now relative to when I was on balanced and ultra. Well, I think that pretty much confirms it for Call of Duty Warzone. You're going to need to drop settings on an 8GB 3070. I'd be curious to know what like a... Maybe if there's a more powerful 8GB card out there than a 3070, how that would fare. How much of it is the VRAM, how much of it is the actual raw horsepower of the car. Unfortunately, I don't have many more cards. I've only got this in my 4080 Super, because we're not a big shot YouTuber just yet. But you never know. Like and subscribe. Let's move on to the next game. Okay, we are in Diablo 4, and we are running the Ultra preset. Not Ray Tracing Ultra, just the plain old Ultra preset, and we don't have any DLSS or any, upscaling funny business going on. We are in 1440p, so let's start the averages, and let's take a little walk down through the town. And the first thing I notice is that immediately this doesn't feel that good. It feels quite choppy. Again, look at those averages. You'd think it would be fine, wouldn't you? That's a healthy number. 118. That's almost a 120 FPS experience. But those 0.1% lows are just really ruining the kind of overall experience. And I can't stress that enough to you. You've got to pay attention to the 1% and the 0.1% lows. It really does make or break the experience. And again, look at that memory usage. We're up at 7.3 gig, which is a similar number to what we had in Call of Duty Warzone when we were experiencing rubbish performance and not a great experience. So I'm wondering how far we have to lower settings, because we are on Ultra, to be fair, on a 3070. And I know a 3070 is a pretty good card, but it's no 4090, is it? So maybe we need to, manage our expectations a little bit. Let's change. Let's go into options, gameplay. Let's just turn off the averages, and we'll come down. Not gameplay, graphics. Let's go from Ultra to... Let's try high. We'll try high first. Yeah, look at that. Now we're on high. We're at sort of 5 point something gigabytes of VRAM being used, which is a much more sensible place to be. That makes me feel much more comfortable with what we're using in terms of VRAM. So let's start the averages, and we're going to go for a little walk up to that church that we just came from. Although I have just gone a different way. I think it was down here, wasn't it? That's okay. It does feel better. Now the 1% lows are above the 60s. 0.1% lows still aren't great. But I can, just from if I was to ignore the numbers, and if I wasn't like obsessing over what we're doing right now, I would say to you, yeah, this feels great. This feels fine. Absolutely fine. The question is, can we get those 0.1% lows up, even if we drop a little bit lower? Because VRAM clearly isn't the issue anymore. So I'd be surprised if we can. Let's give it a go. There we go. So now going down to medium, we are now into the 4 point something range of VRAM. So let's go for a little wander. And again, those 0.1% lows are not the greatest by any stretch of the imagination. 1% lows are doing good, though. Again, those 1% lows, that would be not a bad day on a console. So to have that as kind of our worst case scenario, or close to the worst case scenario on PC, it's hard to grumble at that. But those 0.1% lows, we just can't get it much above 27, can we? What if we go right to the bottom? All right, now we're on low. So this is basically as bad as we can make it look at 1440p. And you can see that 0.1% low is still hovering around 26, 27 FPS, isn't it? And the 1% lows aren't much better. So I do wonder if there is other limitations at play here. Either probably not a CPU limit, looking at what's going on with the CPU usage. I mean, it could just be a game optimization thing, potentially. But I think probably what I would do, if I was on an 8 gig card, 3070, I would probably run this at high, because I couldn't tell a lot of difference between medium and high, other than the VRAM usage dropped from like 5.3 to 4.7, but both were fine. Both were fine. That's absolutely, a fine place to be. Okay, the 0.1% lows are a little bit higher now, but look, I mean, the game just doesn't. Oh, look at that. It's not a good look. So I wouldn't recommend running at low. I think probably high, and if you're not happy with performance at high, if you want a little bit of headroom, maybe go to medium. But I think high is kind of that sweet spot of where it looks good. It looks like Diablo 4, how it should look, and you're getting respectable numbers to go with it. That 1.1% low, it seems a hard number to move, that one. But, the 1% lows, even at high, we were sort of around the 60s, which I think is a really good place to be. So, that would be my recommendation for Diablo 4. Let's move on. All right, so now we're in Forza Horizon 5. And again, what bothers me from the outset is that look at that memory usage. It's at around 7.3, 7.4, 7.2-ish gigabytes. It's probably going to fluctuate as we drive around here. But if you'll remember from the Call of Duty Warzone section and the Diablo 4 section to a point, that was the point at which things started to feel a little bit iffy. We had a fairly respectable average FPS rate, but the 0.1% lows and the 1% lows didn't really feel like they were backing up the average at all, to the point where the game felt a bit choppy and a bit nasty. Now, in fairness, this isn't feeling as choppy, but it is certainly not feeling like a high refresh rate experience, I wouldn't have said. Let's just quickly jump into the settings. I'll show you what's going on here. So we are running at 1440p, and on the graphics settings we are on the extreme preset. So that's kind of where we're at. This is like a worst case scenario, I suppose. But you can tell like that 0.1% low in the 30s. It's alright, but it's not great. The GPU itself is maxed out at 99%, although look, it's not... Oh, I just felt that chop then. Did you feel that? And now look, the 0.1% loads have gone down to 6 frames a second. That's the kind of thing that I want to avoid, really. So I think extreme isn't going to be the way to go here. Let's pull over. Let's drop it down to... Where should we go? I think probably just the next one down is going to make sense. So extreme, let's go to ultra. See if that makes any difference. Oh, damn it, we need to restart. All right, I'm going to restart. I'll see you in a minute. All right, folks, we are back in Forza Horizon 5. We've rebooted, having dropped from the extreme preset to the ultra preset. That is one of the annoying things about Forza. It does require some restarts sometimes. But you can see now our frames per second are doing quite nicely. We are on the averages, sort of up there in terms of getting a high refresh rate experience, around about the 120 FPS mark. 1% lows in the 90s and the 0.1% lows into the 50s. Doesn't seem to be helping my driving, however. But you can see now the VRAM usage has dropped substantially. We've got nearly a gigabyte of VRAM back to ourselves. And I think that is paying dividends just in terms of how the game feels, because as we saw with Diablo, as we saw with Call of Duty Warzone, as we saw with this on the extreme preset, even though the averages look alright, those 0.1% lows, they can really make or break the experience. And you saw there as we were driving towards the festival. In fact, let's head that direction. Where is it? Out of here and make a right. We had a pretty awful dip down to about 6 FPS. It was along this road, I believe. So we'll just head down there and see if that's something that we can recreate even on the Ultra preset. But I would say for sure 1440p, you can get away with Ultra. Not extreme, but you can get away with Ultra. This feels absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. And we're comfortably within the VRAM limits of the 3070. Again, it's almost like when you start seeing 7.2, 7.3, 7.4 being used, that's the point at which you're like, ugh, not sure about this. Alright, so we're back and we are on the medium preset. We didn't go all the way to low, but I just wanted to see how things were if we were to sort of really drop substantially from the kind of ultra and extreme presets. And you can see we're now up to almost 200 FPS on the averages, 1% lows of 160, which is really nice, and a 0.1% low of 70. GPU doesn't seem to be getting maxed out all the time either. It is dropping sort of into the low 90s in terms of its usage, so that's not a bad place to be. And you can see the VRAM usage is only at 3.8 gig, which is very modest. However, despite this impressive looking sunset, I'm not convinced the game looks anywhere near as good. Look at all that pop in there on the hill there to the left, and just the general textures, they're just not quite up to it. I think if it was me playing at 1440p for myself, I would probably choose to use the Ultra preset. I kind of feel like that got us to a really, really nice level of visuals, to an acceptable range of FPS performance. Sure, you could go higher if you drop it more, but I'm not entirely, you know, this isn't a competitive shooter. I'm not going to agonize over every last 10, 20, 30 FPS. I kind of feel like where we were with Ultra was a nice balance of visuals and just overall smoothness. Because of the, you know, the 0.1% lows, 1% lows, they were at a good range, I would say. So we can't go all the way to extreme, or well, you can, but you shouldn't. Just dropping it a little bit means you can still have a really good experience with an 8 gig card in 2024 on Forza Horizon 5. Alright, let's move along to the next game. Alright folks, we are here in Halo Infinite. I really wish more people liked this game because it seemed to wither on the vine and just die off. But I thought it was a fantastic game. But anyway, that aside, we are running at 1440p and we have VSync off and we're running it on the Ultra preset, and already the game is warning us that our VRAM limit is going to be getting a little bit close. That is incredibly close, but we're going to run it anyway, see what happens. We'll get into the match and we'll see what's what.
More kills than your opponent.
Alright, we're in Halo Infinite, we're in Big Team Battle. I thought I'd go with Big Team Battle as it's kind of the mode that kind of gives you the bigger maps with the more people on it, and I thought this is probably going to be, you know, the stressier map on the system than just say a small multiplayer map. So, as we said before, we're running at the Ultra preset and we are at 1440p, and those of you that might remember a few moments ago, it said that we're really right on the limit of our VRAM capacity. So, and you can see that the memory usage there is up near that problem zone, 7.2, 7.3 gigabytes. It always seems to be when it's around there, that's when the 1% lows start to take a little bit of a hit. All right, let's see if I can actually find some people to shoot. Oh, I'm being shot at, it would seem. Who's shooting me? However, all that being said, 0.1% low of 71 FPS isn't actually that bad. So despite the game's warnings, I am just going to confirm we are using those settings. Video, yeah, it's still got that warning up. Look, you know, we're right up into the danger zone of VRAM and we're running at Ultra. So if we were to change it to high, reset the old averages, you can see that the VRAM usage has dropped a little bit, but not by much. We're still in over the 7 gig limit. Now, in general, so far making this video, it seems that when you get to a level of quality where you start to get into the 6s and the 5s, that's when you start to get that really... Oh, this gun is pants.
Power equipment incoming.
Do not like this gun. Let's just pistol it, shall we? Yeah, we're back up to 7.2. Yes! Oh, damn it. So it's my gut feeling that maybe we need to drop a little bit more. Rather than going from high, maybe we need to go to medium. And still, that's really not making a blind bit of difference, is it? It's, the VRAM is still fairly stacked. I'm wondering whether that's because we just need to, like, back out of the match. However, the FPS numbers do seem to be improving, so I don't know whether it's just not releasing the VRAM it currently had allocated. Oh, yeah, give me some of that. Maybe, maybe not. Hard to tell. Thanks for that. But in any case, I did think that even at Ultra, we weren't in too much of a bad shape. We really weren't. GPU's maxed out anyway. 100% usage. 240 watts of power near enough being drawn. So the actual GPU core is really kind of getting to its limit at this point. Oh, you're trying to rocket me. God, yeah, I'm not very good at this game, am I? I think there's something fishy going on with that memory usage because unlike the other games, it is not dropping when we drop down. I don't think the game is properly deallocating its VRAM when you drop to a lower setting. Or maybe we just need to go super low. Let's go to low. Yeah, see, current 3.31 is what it recommends, or thinks we're going to be at, and you can see it's just retaining. We just reset the averages. Yeah, I mean, the frames per second is going up and up and up. So it does make for a smoother experience. 1.1% low of 80 FPS. Just keep an eye on that. We're on low, so this is as good as it's going to get, really. Alright folks, here we are in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. We are running at 1440p on the very high preset, and we are not running any upscaling. Yeah, there's no DLSS, there's no FSR, there's no frame generation, even though this game is capable of all of that stuff. And you can see even before we've even thought about running some averages, let's just turn those on. We're not even breaking 60 FPS with you know, the averages there. So I think very high preset is a no-go. GPU is flat out more or less, and that VRAM usage at 7.4 gig, almost 7.5 gig, that is what I've kind of learned through this video. That's kind of the problem area. If you're up there in the VRAM usage, that's probably not a good place to be. So let's stop the averages. Let's drop it down from very high to high, see if that makes a difference. Yeah, so dropping it from very high to high has helped a little bit. The VRAM now has dropped down to nearer sort of 7.0/1 gigabytes used. GPU is still getting absolutely punished though, and averages just around 60, 1% lows, 0.1% lows, significantly lower than that. So I think it's fair to say at this point maybe VRAM isn't the limit, just kind of the overall power of the card. Let's just go for a little run around, just see how it feels. Doesn't feel... It doesn't feel awful. It doesn't feel the best either. Let's drop it down one more stage. Let's go to settings, display and graphics. Let's go to medium, and we will see what happens there. Reset the averages. Oh my goodness, yeah. Going from high to medium. VRAM now in that comfort zone of kind of 6.5 gig. Yeah, we've got a nice little bit of headroom. Averages up near 100 FPS. 1% lows at 60. 0.1% lows just a fraction lower at 50. I'm just trying to see if I can tell the difference visually. It still looks really flipping good at medium. Let's look at that. Look at that. Out of interest, what settings was it changing going between medium and... high there? So what I want to pay attention to is these ray tracing ones here. So they're all off at the moment. If we go to high, it still remains off, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, I did wonder whether sort of like very high would have ray tracing set to on by default, and then maybe medium was the one that turns them off, but it doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like it. So I think probably it's fair to say that on a 3070 at least, obviously I can't say this for all 8GB cards, but for a 3070 at least, I think medium's probably where you want to be if you want a native 1440p experience. If you're willing to put on some DLSS, of course, that could all change. But at 1440p, I don't know. I don't know about DLSS. That's kind of why I haven't really been showing you much of it during this video. 4K, I think that's a pretty solid case for using DLSS, because 4K, even on top end hardware, can still be a bit of a struggle. And if you're on more modest hardware, but you really do want to run 4K, I think DLSS is a good tool to get you there. Same for FSR as well, of course. But 1440p, I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced. I mean, DLSS quality is the kind of as far as I would want to go. I wouldn't want to go balanced. I wouldn't want to go performance at all, to be perfectly honest with you. Okay, so I think this is where things are going to get a little bit busier. So I think we start getting some enemies and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how the 1% lows, 0.1% lows hold up during that. Let's just get this ammo crate, and then I think this is where stuff starts to happen. I mean, even at medium, it looks flipping good.
Hey, I think I found the lawn back.
I think a lot of the reason why this game looks good is almost because of like the artistic direction, as opposed to kind of the raw graphical prowess, if that makes sense. Right. Yeah, see, the 1% lows, 0.1% lows are holding up, which is really nice to see. I'm fairly certain there's a rail coming up. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. I don't know, visually the game still looks pretty damn good. I would be happy to play this at 1440p at medium. And the frames are in a much better position. I would probably take 1440p medium over high with DLSS at 1440p, and certainly at 1080p. Certainly at 1080p. But that's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like I say, for me, 4K is really the only resolution I'd be willing to accept DLSS upscaling on. But maybe that's just me being a grumpy old man. Alright, I could play this all day. It's such a good game. Initially, I wrote this off. I was like, oh, it's a stupid kid's game. I played it. I was like, oh man, it's so good. Love this game. Anyway, I could play this all day, but I need to move on to the next game. So, I'll see you in a moment. Alright, what benchmark video would be complete without a dip of our toe into Starfield? Now, we're running on the Ultra preset. However, if we were to go into settings right now, it would say we're on a custom preset. That is because I turned off VSync because I wanted to let the FPS run as high as it could. Now, I think it's fair to say that VRAM isn't an issue, even at the Ultra preset, and you know, we're at 5.2 gig, which is absolutely fine. We've got a ton of room. I think the main issue is probably either a, well, looking at it here, it looks like a GPU limitation, which is to be expected because we are on a 3070. Let's just turn on some averages and see what's going on here. Now, really, the 1% lows, 0.1% lows aren't dramatically beneath our averages. So, I mean, despite dealing with relatively low numbers overall, it's not a terrible result. So let's dive into the settings menu and see if we can start dropping settings, see if we can get things up a little bit. Yeah, so highs bought us a tiny bit more, but not a ton more. Not a ton more. Still, 1% lows, 0.1% lows are a little bit higher. A little bit higher. At what point will the GPU limit go away, and at what point will we run into a CPU limit, I wonder? Because you've got to keep in mind, this is only, I keep saying it's only a 3070 like it's a bad card. It's not a bad card, it's just you need to kind of keep your expectations in check. It's no 4090, is it? So let's pause it here. Go back in. Instead of high, we will drop it down to medium. Still, that GPU still getting worked pretty hard, isn't it? CPU usage has gone up though. Look at that CPU usage now. Almost at 80%. 5800X3D being put to good work. And we're at around the 97, almost 100 FPS. So this is a really nice place to be, all things considered. I know Starfield gets a hard time, you know, like it's not optimized, it's not this, it's not that, but average of nearly 100, 1% low of nearly 80, 0.1% low of nearly 70. If you were to turn off these numbers and just play the game, you'd have a good time. I mean, that feels lovely and smooth. Consistent. That's what we like. Okay, so this video wouldn't be complete unless we, of course, had a look at Cyberpunk. I've put us on the Ultra preset here, which by default uses AMD FSR 2.1 at quality mode. So I'm going to leave that as it is, just to kind of respect the Ultra preset, so it's easier for you guys to, you know, get like-for-like results on your own hardware. And we will see what happens. We are running at 1440p, and VSync is off. So let's jump in and see what we get. All right, so even with FSR 2.1, I nearly turned that off because I thought, no, I want to run it native. Even with FSR 2.1, we're not getting much beyond 60 FPS, although I don't think that's an issue with the VRAM. I think it is mostly an issue with the fact that the game is just such a good-looking game. I mean, just feast your eyes on everything that's going on here. I mean, just it's a heck of a good-looking game. And you can see the card is drawing nearly 240 watts of power. So I think actually it's kind of the raw compute power that is the issue here rather than the VRAM limit of the graphics card, because you can see we're at 6.8 gigs, 6.7. So we've got a good gigabyte to spare. Just curious if the VRAM starts to drop. If we were to lower the settings, let's just drop it down a little bit. There we go. So moving down to high, you can see that the FPS numbers have improved quite a bit. We're now up into the 80s and the 90s. VRAM is still in the 6s, which is good. And we are slightly less GPU limited. Look at that GPU usage now, sort of at, well, it's not constantly pegged at 100%, but it's still pretty close to it. Went down to 80 there for a minute. Most likely is that we're going to be getting a CPU limitation at this point. Let's see if we drop to the low, whether we go much beyond sort of 90s on the average. All right, so I've dropped it down to medium, and you can see the averages are up near the 120s now. VRAM has dropped down to 5.6 gig, and we are seemingly not running at the ragged edge of our GPU's capabilities. This is still with FSR 2.1 enabled, I believe. I will just double check that now I've said it. Yes, we are. That's fine. Yeah, I would say we're running... Let me just reset the averages because I went into the menu. The card seems to be having a much nicer time running at medium than it is at high or ultra. And again, 1440p, I'm not a big fan of using upscaling anyway, so I wouldn't particularly want to start leaning too heavily on the likes of DLSS and putting it into like ultra performance mode. I think, obviously this isn't any ray tracing going on, but yeah, the 3070 with ray tracing, I don't know. I guess you could do it if you're willing to mix DLSS into it. And you can try it. That might also... That's actually a good thing to check, because it could well actually impact the VRAM usage. So DLSS, let's go for quality. This is Ray Tracing Ultra, so we're pushing it. Oh my goodness, yeah, okay, so the card can't even get beyond 45, so that's a no-go. Oh, wrong button. Let's go with... I'll tell you what, instead of going Ray Tracing Ultra, let's go Ray Tracing Medium and go with quality. Don't really want to go much beneath quality on a 1440p display. That's not a lot better, is it? That is not a lot better. And look at that VRAM usage, 7.6 gig. 7.7, so we are running up against it here with... Alright, let's just go to balance, see if that does help us. Getting somewhere approaching 60. And what if we go to performance? I don't like performance, not 1440p, but we'll try it anyway. Give it a second just to get its bearings. Okay, so we're getting nearer to 70. That being said, how does it feel? Doesn't feel particularly brilliant. Doesn't feel particularly brilliant. It feels like we're in that danger zone again with the VRAM. You know, the 7 point somethings is when we generally start to get the 1%, 0.1% lows starting to go quite low, and you just get a kind of rubbish feeling game. So I can't in good conscience recommend ray tracing even at the medium. What were we at? We were at ray tracing medium, weren't we? What about ray tracing low with DLSS quality? I mean, we are above 60 in fairness. Yeah, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced this is the right card for ray tracing. I know it's an RTX, but in Cyberpunk 1440p, I'm not convinced it's a good idea. Like I say, we're really going up against that RAM limit there of the 8 gigabytes. Doesn't feel right. So I think really probably what I would do if I was on a 3070 full time is I would be going high, I'd be going DLSS, I'd be going quality. And I'd say that is probably where I'd leave it. Around about 100 FPS on the averages, 1% lows, 0.1% lows. I mean, the 0.1% lows aren't great. 1% lows are okay at 50-ish. It'd be nice if they're a touch higher. But it does feel quite smooth. Just sort of panning around. Yeah, it's okay, that. Oh dear. Let's not go down there. I mean, yeah, the lows are suffering though, aren't they? Okay, what about medium with DLSS quality? Doesn't take much to get those lows to start dropping, does it? Once you start sprinting around the place, even at medium with quality. DLSS on. So on that basis, given that the lows still aren't great at medium, I think I'm going to stick with my original thoughts and go with DLSS onto quality with the high preset. Obviously, once you start fiddling around with this, it will change it to custom, but we started on the high preset, and I think that's probably where I'm going to land. But yeah, we are sort of pushing it a bit with ray tracing. So an 8 gigabyte card obviously will give you limitations, as you've seen in all the different games we've played so far today. Yeah, it's not to say they're bad cards. I mean, you can pick up a 3070 on the used market now for a really good price. However, if you're buying new and you're paying proper money, I don't think an 8 gigabyte card is really what you should be looking at in 2024. You should be trying to get at least 12, I would say. I think 12 is the new 8, in a way. Obviously, if you can go 16 with even like a RDNA 2 card, 6800 XT, or just plain old 6800, they both had 16 gigs of VRAM. 6900 XT, they were at 16. Obviously, 4080s from NVIDIA are at 16, but, you know, that's a good chunk of cash for one of those. So, obviously, your budget will vary. But yeah, 8 gigabytes is doable at 1440p in 2024. You just might need to lower your settings a little bit. What I'll do, I'll end this video here. I'll say thanks very much for watching, but I'm going to leave an end screen where I'm going to kind of just put some text up with all the games we've tested and kind of what I would recommend the settings that you have them at least as a starting point to get you going. Obviously, you can tweak from there. Like, let's say you're really into Forza Horizon 5. You might want to dive deep into Forza Horizon 5's every single graphics setting, because there's probably some YouTuber out there that's done an insanely detailed breakdown of, you know, which levers to pull to get the most frames without sacrificing visuals. You could go down that route if you want. I'm obviously trying to give you somewhere to start, really, with the presets. So I'll chuck that screen up and end the video there and say thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. It really helps the channel. I kind of feel like we're kind of feeling our way out with the channel at the moment. You know, I'm trying different things. I'm trying to see what works. I don't really know what I'm doing, if I'm being completely honest with you. Trying to figure it out as we go here. My Flight Sim channel, I feel like I know what I'm doing with that channel, and the numbers reflect that, but this one can be a little bit hit and miss. So leave a comment. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Always welcome feedback. It's really important because that's how we get better. It's how we can improve things. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to get the channel making a little bit of money, to get a little bit of budget, to get some hardware into the studio here and actually do some tests, because I kind of feel like that's what most of you guys like. I did run a poll a little while ago, and the overwhelming opinion was we like seeing you test hardware, but it's like, damn it, hardware costs money. So I don't know. We'll figure it out though. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll leave you with the ending screen. I'll see you next time. Cheers.